The concept of self-care, the truth of it is optimum function and performance of a vehicle that's got a sixth gear that you keep burning out. Resilience is the smartest business strategy there is, because you can't run 440 through a 110 line and expect you're going to have anything left. And that is what we do all the time, because the mind says everything else is more important than you.
Welcome to the Optimized Workplace. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Kathleen Gramzay, the innovative founder of Kinessage, a renowned body-mind resilience and self-care expert. Kathleen is the developer of Kinessage, which is copywritten. It's a release your pain virtual self-care system. Wow. So Kathleen's journey from overcoming chronic pain and burnout to pioneering self-care solutions has made her a sought-after speaker and leader and wellness-conscious performance and culture. Our topic today is on a resiliency of leadership and the impact of resilient leadership on organizational culture and success, and exploring how resilient leadership can foster a thriving, adaptable workplace environment. So with that, Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you've got quite a task, which I think is a very pertinent task, given the times that we're living in, starting a new year, 2025, and everything, if you think about the last 4 to 5 years that we have been through. I'd love to start this conversation because I think when you say resilience and you say leadership, there's different things that pop into people's heads. So how do you define in your practice a resilient leader? How's that? What does that look like? And what does that look like for organizational success?
Leadership resilience, or leader resilience, is really where we start. And that is an individual aspect of capacity to be able to handle life. And obviously, business is stressful, and leading a business is even more stressful. And most leaders think of it in terms of resilience, in terms of systems or a supply chain, or they're thinking about operationally. But really, what we're talking about is our own human resilience, our ability to be able to handle life. And really, what you're seeing is, over the last 4 years and 5 years with COVID and the amount of change, uncertainty, pressure, stress has really caused the levels of burnout and chronic stress in leaders to skyrocket. So right now, there's lots of different studies depending on what you're looking at, but anywhere from 56% up to 98%. So it just depends on what industry you're in, whatever. But and women leaders are typically 12% higher than men, because usually they're doing a double dose of work, both at work and then also at home. So really, if you can't think clearly and focus and get along with people, your ability to be a good leader is substantially impeded. So what really I do is work with leaders and teams to demonstrate and show them that when they have control over their nervous system, right, it's an automatic system that is designed for our safety. Every time the nervous system is always looking for threat or safety. When it gets threat, it puts us in fight, flight, or freeze. And that is an automatic response. It is not something we say, oh, I think I'm going to get angry right now, or I'm going to be cynical right now, or whatever it is. It is the automatic response that hijacks us, right? The amygdala in the brain basically decides, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to keep you safe. And that can show up, it does show up in negative biases in how we think, how we feel, how we behave, and then how it shows up in physical disease.
Now, before we get into the kind of the details and the meat of it, because it's fantastic, let's back up a little bit, because I think for our listeners, we have lots of C-suite that listen to the show. We have quite a few that are team managers and some, CEOs of small businesses. So when you're thinking about, again, how you're approaching this topic for yourself, are there specific signs that leaders should look for if they're feeling like there's a lack of resilience on their part or on the part of somebody that they're managing?
Yes, absolutely. The signs are very, very bright. It's like a red warning sign. It has a lot to do with, for example, in decision making. So if you're normally a calm, clear, decisive person, and you start noticing that you either are making very hasty decisions or you can't make a decision, those are signs of burnout. If you are skeptical is a great quality. Cynical is a negative bias of that quality.
Mm.
So it goes from being, okay, let me ask the questions and really understand what's going on here, to a negative bias of, that's never going to work. Forget that. I'm not open to that idea. And then it shows up in emotions. So more anger or frustration, worry, anxiety, panic attacks. And then there's shutdown, which shows up as freeze. Like all of a sudden, that great brain of yours that is well sharp and has lots of experience, it's not coming out.
Supposed to be working for you.
That's right. It's not coming out. It's like, got nothing.
Wow. You're
Right.
describing the last 4 years, like, I think about, some of the clients we've had over the last couple of years, especially during COVID, and some of to your point, what women have dealt with, particularly in leadership during that time where it was just a very stressful, pandemic rich time, and people are really just holding on for dear life. And so the manifestation of that, of what showed up, was just incredible overwhelm. It wasn't even burnout. We've seen
Right.
burnout over the years,
Yep.
but overwhelm was huge.
Yes.
I'm curious, before we kind of unpack that back to where you were before, tell us a little bit about how you arrived at this journey in your career, and why Kinessage, and what was it that made you get into this field?
Necessity is the mother of invention. So I had a career in real estate development, and then I decided I wanted to do something that was more impactful in one-on-one. So I decided to shift gears and I became a massage therapist. And 1 year into my career, my body was killing me because I was doing deep tissue. All my clients loved it. My body did not love it. If I didn't figure out a smarter way to work, I was done. And I had this thought, what if I use the body's design for movement instead of force? Then maybe I could continue. So I am a geek when it comes to anatomy and kinesiology. So I just basically studied the body and figured out how to reverse engineer the body's design for movement to release the chronic tension patterns that I was having in my body that was causing the pain. So then I was like, well, now I'm going to make this I would like to make this into a method of massage that is kinder and more effective for the therapist and the client, because I think massage should feel good. And so basically it uses the nervous system and movement. So I did that. Not only did I solve that issue, but I also had a chronic back problem since high school that would just randomly go out, completely fix that, or actually resolve that. And then it was, okay, then it was other therapists having pain, right? That I no longer had. And so now I'm going to become a CE provider and go teach my programs to occupational, physical, and massage therapists. So started a dual business there, and then ran those both. And then in 2015, when the opioid epidemic was bad, and that was now tapping me on the shoulder, it was like the universe saying, okay, now it needs to be for everybody. And I was like, I don't even like tech. No. I was like, no, you're going to do, this is for you. So I retired from my practice, kept my teaching seminar business, and then made it into a virtual system for the public so that anybody who wanted a virtual system, they could do themselves without drugs or having to see somebody, could have it.
So as you speak about that, so there's a methodology by which a person can basically work on themselves to heal some of these pains and aches and things. Wow,
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yeah, actually, it was teaching all the therapists. The big gamble was therapists understand what we're talking about here, so they knew how to work on themselves. But can the average person who knows nothing about their body do this? And so the system is a book I wrote called Release Your Pain, Expand Your Life, which is a very simple 120-page digital book. Here's how your body mind works, and here's how to partner with it. But it's paired with the 6 segments of the movements that I created that systematically use the receptors in your body, use your nervous system. Your awareness and doing the movements is what releases those chronic tension patterns that cause things like sciatica, carpal tunnel, tendinitis, plantar fasciitis, anything that's soft tissue. And then I brought that into business.
Oh, that's remarkable. I mean, amazing, Kathleen. I can already hear the light bulbs going off virtually for people because everybody deals with some sense of pain.
Yes.
And what I see quite a bit, and used to see a lot when I was a trainer, right? But have still seen in practice, just even in the boardroom and in the office room, is that people ignore those pains, right?
Correct.
And so it just continues to build and build and build in the body. So amazing that you have now invented a system by which people can basically work on themselves, massage, self-care themselves to actually heal and continue to heal.
Yes. It's really, in essence, it is being able to do neuromyofascial massage on yourself is really what it is. And then, but that process of bringing it into that, that business into the world and then taking it into business, I was the one who ended up on the floor in the fetal position from burnout.
Oh,
And so that was the next key was I literally, my brain stopped functioning. I couldn't get a thought. I couldn't, one too many entrepreneurial challenges. Couldn't, it's like, I gotta get myself off the floor. And so I had this other thought, which was go back to the nervous system. And then I was like, aha. And I had a technique to use. And then I went back and started studying trauma and how trauma and chronic stress affects the body and the mind, right? Our function.
And can hide in the body. Trauma can hide
Absolutely.
in the body. And so you have to find a way to release that. Keep going,
Right.
please.
So they're absolutely tied together. And so because I was talking about releasing your own sciatica without drugs, the clients I would go in these, into companies, they're like, what are you talking about? And what I did was I could see in 2016, this was how chronically stressed they were that they couldn't even hear what I was saying. They were in survival mode. They couldn't hear it. So I said, let me teach you these other things first so that you can now get present and be here and now understand what we're talking about. And that's
so
how
before you continue, that's a golden gem, everybody, that she just dropped. So she just kind of subliminally put that in there for you because she is the expert. So you don't even realize, the wavelength that she's operating on. So basically what she helps you appreciate is that before you can heal yourself and work on yourself intellectually or mentally, physiologically, because the body is physical, if you can have a physical response to adaptation and support and help and healing, then you can work on the other piece. So that's what she's talking about. She tried to help. She helped people physically. And so that's why you see so many during this time of year, options for just getting out there and moving and walking and doing something, because usually that's where you need to start. Please continue.
Thank you for translating.
Look, I know my audience.
I really appreciate that.
No, this is phenomenal.
And I'm sure they do too.
Yeah, no, this is phenomenal. Please keep going, Kathleen.
Yeah. So basically, it is all tied together. You cannot separate mental health from emotional health, from physical health, from behavioral health, because that's how what we just talked about, how it shows up in thinking and feeling, how it shows up in behavior is aggression or microaggression at work, for example, hostility. It ends up in numbing yourself with food. It ends up in too much binging of Netflix or alcohol or food or whatever it is. And then here's this container that you're living in that is the holder of all of this. And then how it shows up is then in physical disease, cardiovascular disease. It shows up in high blood pressure. It shows up in the free side or the overwhelm free side. That shows up as chronic fatigue. It shows up as low blood pressure, can show up as diabetes too. So when you see when that's the biggest aha when I talk to people, because you look at what your patterns are in fight, flight, or freeze, you can see your own patterns. It stems from when we were kids and we figured out there was a certain one of those three go-tos, fight, flight, or freeze, that was your best option for staying safe.
Yep. And so we continue just to do it, but you stay in one quadrant or one emotion your whole life.
Yeah. Or we toggle all the time, but you got your go-to, which is, and again, it's automatic. Yeah. So we don't realize we're being that way. It's like a self-darkening pair of sunglasses. We have them on. We went outside. They got dark. We came in. We don't know we still have them on, but everybody else can see it.
That is powerful.
Yes.
Okay. Please don't lose your train of thought. But that's another golden gem. So in the coaching world, we call that a blind spot, right? So for those of you who have had coaches, many people are familiar with that. You've had a coach. And so the coach says, well, I'm going to help you with your blind spot. What's a blind spot? Well, those are the spots you can't see. Like you're the only one, you don't realize that you're acting like a complete idiot or a complete, or you're, popping off on people. And you're like, okay, this is just the way I am. No. Mr. Manager or Miss a VP, that's not normal. And people around you see all of that, but you have on something called the blind spot. Like she said, the shades. And so you don't see that. I never realized though, Kathleen, you just taught me something that can happen from a physiological response as well. Like that all can map in together. I never realized that.
It's all of it. And that was the example I was going to give you. We've all been in a meeting, and whoever it is, it doesn't even matter. You're in your meeting people, and all of a sudden somebody gets triggered and has some kind of reaction, and the whole room just goes, okay. And they storm out. They don't know because they are so steeped in that emotion, and their heart's racing and their blood pressure is up. They don't know. They have a whole different thing going on in their head, right? So when we understand that these are patterns of the nervous system that is overtaxed, it gives us compassion, first of all, for ourselves, and second of all, for each other. And it is really it's a maintenance of this beautiful vehicle that we've been given that's got a sixth gear that you can use, but most people don't know how. So meanwhile, we're burning out the clutch over here, and it's causing a lot of friction in ourselves personally, in our relationships, in our business, in our ability to think calmly and stay focused.
If you are enjoying this segment or any of the segments that you've heard thus far on the Optimized Workplace, please be sure to join us here below and just follow us on the Optimized Workplace. We really want to not only drive our viewers and listeners, but we also want to share it. So if there's others that you know, like us, please here, join and listen, subscribe on a regular basis, but also share the podcast. We'd love to have you back. You know, what I love about what you're talking about, there's so many levels. But first and foremost, I think that you're allowing people to, we talk so much, it's so overused, you know the term, self-care, right? And empathy.
Yeah.
But you're really helping people understand you where their empathy needs to be for self first.
Yes.
Because you are so over-traumatized, overwhelmed, overworked. So, you're so used to holding, it's like you're holding like a straitjacket, all of that stuff, and you haven't released it. No one's ever taught you to release it. Right. So what Kathleen is really giving you the manifesto, really the prescription of us, how do you begin to even perceive that that's your situation and that you can start to unpack it physically first, because we all get up every day, open our eyes, get out of bed and move. So physically, your body's already used to, and you're used to it to some degree. But then after you take that first step, as you just well eloquently said, Kathleen, then the next step is, how do I then begin to work through and move through some of the emotional and mental pieces? And I love the beauty of what you've explained, because so often, particularly when we talk about leadership, people approach it as a very intellectual exercise.
Correct.
Just go learn, this, or let me go authenticate over here, or let me, learn this new skill set, or let me get this new knowledge base. And they try to really, again, intellectualize it so much. But what they don't recognize is physically you are showing up a certain way. And until you heal and work on that, and if you're in pain or you have a blind spot too, you don't even realize that. So you can't intellectualize physicality.
Correct. The interesting thing, and it's really a complete shift of the paradigm, we have been conditioned that this is the king or queen, this is the slave, and this doesn't matter.
Okay, so you have people that are listening, so please explain what you just said.
Okay, so our head from the neck up, the queen or the king, this is who gets their way. The mind gets their way. The body is, you're not important. Right? Oh, you needed to go to the bathroom 3 hours ago and you haven't. Oh, too bad. I have to get this work done. Oh, I have a migraine. I haven't eaten or had water in 2 hours. It's okay. Just, you got to power through this because this is really important. The concept of self-care is fluff and pamper. The truth of it is function. It is optimum function and performance of a vehicle that's got a sixth gear that you keep burning out. So it is the smartest business strategy there is. Resilience is the smartest business strategy there is, because you can't run 440 through a 110 line and expect you're going to have anything left, right? And that is what we do all the time, because the mind says everything else is more important than you. Meanwhile, your body is talking to you all the time. And the interesting thing about the brain is when it does not get what it needs. So we're on screens all day, right? Our vision is tunnel vision to this screen most of the time. When we do not get clear information through our receptors, through our vision, through our balance, through our movement, the brain, it's now murky. And so now it's going to do things to keep you limited because it wants to keep you safe. So
Mm,
think of it being you go on a boat, you got waves. Well, you're going to get nauseous because get on the land where it's safe. So
yeah,
it's the same thing. So pain, so migraines, so just all of the things the body does is part of its arsenal of the
yeah,
nervous system to
yeah.
keep you safe. So when you know that moving your body, I mean, these are things we know. It's been diminished. Oh,
Mhm.
going for a walk. Oh, I should breathe. Oh, blah blah. That mind, that intellectual mind,
Absolutely.
the judge, the critic. There it
Yep.
is. This is so
Exactly. I should
yoga.
have that figured out already. Yeah, but you're not doing it. If you had it figured out, then we wouldn't have this conversation.
Right.
What you're saying, everything you're saying brings back to mind, Fran circa 2000 when I was a trainer. And, I would tell clients all the time, they'd be so, especially, I had a lot of female leaders at the time that I was training, and they'd be so demoralized and so hard on themselves because they couldn't lose weight or their body wasn't reacting to the exercise or wasn't reacting to whatever the paces we were putting it through. And I would have to have these conversations and it was very daunting because here I am, this 20 something, having these conversations with these women who were powerhouses. But, I mustered the boldness to do it. I said, what you don't realize is you have neglected your body
Yes.
for 4 decades or 5 decades, but it's still functioning. It is still holding you up
Amazingly.
amazingly. And now it's time for you to learn a new rhythm, and you're not being willing enough to be patient enough or empathetic enough
Yes.
with yourself to say, you know what, I need to learn this new rhythm and give myself the grace to be able to do so, which is basically, in essence, what you're saying. What a phenomenal conversation. Wow.
Yeah.
So I see why you love what you do so much.
Yeah. And here's to add to your point, then people don't realize that weight is protection, right? This is what your body is. Everything that you're contending with your body really is your subconscious mind. Literally, it is your subconscious mind. There are molecules of emotion and energy becomes material, right, in our
Mm,
bodies. So when we're judging it on top of it, right, as opposed to being able to tend it as a loving child, like as you would your child or a grandchild, when you start to actually have respect for how incredible this is like a Maserati we're driving around. I
thank
mean,
you.
no kidding. It is the most extraordinary vehicle there is on the planet. And all it needs is a little of attention, health, like sleep, obviously, good nutrition and movement and awareness. Those
Well,
things.
that's the thing. I mean, the fact that you can neglect it for that period of time
Yes.
and it still functions, and if you make a couple of tweaks
Yes.
over a couple of weeks, all of a sudden you may be moving towards a brand new machine. Like, just take that in for a moment. I think
Exactly.
physiologically, that's what people don't realize. Even as athletes, what have you, the body heals itself. It has the ability to continue to perform beyond, but you have to be willing to take care of it. Okay, I've already decided we're going to have you back for part two because I could talk to you all day. This is so phenomenal, so
My
powerful.
pleasure.
I
Yeah,
love
because
it.
then
I
we
love
get into the relationship about what stalls us as leaders.
it.
Like why?
Mhm.
Okay, so we know great things. We got what stalls us. It's not the obstacles don't stall us. What stalls us is when we get triggered, we go into fight, flight, or freeze, and it's the beliefs and the feelings about those obstacles that really cause us to stall. Instead of and go into those avoidance habits, go into those behaviors, and really that's why when you work with the nervous system and you start here, you are neurologically changing you, which then changes everyone else because we are always reading each other neurologically for safety or threat. So
Yes.
leaders change themselves, then they change everything. That's why they're the biggest impact on culture. Leaders and managers, of course.
Yeah, they change the environment, they change the community,
Correct.
change the world.
Yep.
So we've talked a lot about the what. Can you give maybe three or five quick tips
Okay.
on what companies can do, organizations can do, leaders can do if they want to begin to start to move the needle? Are there a couple of practical things besides, of course, calling you? All of her information will be in the show notes. Don't worry. However, what are a couple of things they can just start to do, even maybe if it's a matter of taking some steps, some action steps?
Well, simple. This is like the simplest thing. You can start with putting in your calendar, like for everybody's in your calendar, make hour meetings, 55 meetings, and take that 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, do go for a walk or the most important thing is visual. So look out 20 feet. So look 20 feet for 20 seconds and then come back. And just by having simple things or literally putting your hands over your eyeballs, like, making a cup and making it dark, will allow the eyes to break. When the eyes are not, and it'll help from fatigue, but it also it'll calm the nervous system down. That's just a very, very simple thing. So start there. And then there's obviously lots of other things. I mean, actually do the things that you say you're going to do in terms of your wellness program. So start there, right? Like, what do you have? Start implementing it. Start actually doing it. Do walking meetings.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, get movement, drink water. There's much more to really then bring it into performance level. It's simple, but you just have to know how. You just have to learn how your vehicle works.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This has been such a phenomenal conversation, Kathleen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, we are rounding the clock. Obviously, we just started a brand new year. Would love to hear, are there any, passion projects or special projects that you had for Kinessage that you're looking forward to this year that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. Well, I'm starting the first one actually on Saturday, which is it is called Our Minds, Our Power. And it is for women. Actually, so I'm doing this one live in the Valley here in Scottsdale. And it is for women leaders I have a process of being able to identify when you go into one of those fight, flight, or freeze, how to neutralize it. Then there's always like, okay, now we're ruminating about the trigger, right? How to neutralize that, flip it to a bigger truth, and then using neurosomatics to help re-imprint the body with the new believer, because you cannot separate the belief and the feeling from the actual physical. You're actually living it, right, through your emotions. So my really for this year, helping these extraordinary women leaders be able to move through that process quicker so that they can really bring their impact to the world. Because we have a whole lot of mission-driven, amazing women. And I was like, yes, we're going to start out with accelerating everyone's success, but with, right, through being healthy, through being mindful. And that's another word that gets used up interestingly, but basically having with your mental peace, health, and connection, relationships intact.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned to everyone, all of Kathleen's information will be in the show notes. If you want to reach out to her for a corporate retreat, I'm sure she does those workshops, or just to learn more. I think the work that you're doing is incredibly profound and very necessary, not just corporate America, but in communities and cultures. So thank you very much for what you do. And thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. It's been wonderful, Fran.
And thank you for joining us for the Optimized Workplace. Again, I'm your host, Fran Dean-Bishop. And always remember, it's those mini moments, those small little nuggets that can make the biggest difference in your life. Just like Kathleen said, take the small steps first. Take care, everyone.